As we move into the 21st century, our world arrives at a crossroads of challenge and opportunity. Regions that were once remote are now impacting the global economy as never before.
지금까지 유럽이 지배해온 그러한 세계에서 새로운 아시아 태평양의 협력의 시대로 옮겨가고 있습니다.
As new trade opportunities emerge, avenues to transport the world's goods, people, and services become increasingly congested.
One of the biggest barriers to entry in any economic market is travel, is transit. Being able to get your product to market, being able to get it from point A to point B.
We are becoming ever more dependent on the transportation systems that link us.
See a world in the 21st century where it makes sense, whether it be economically or in terms of stability, for all nations of the world to be integrated, for all nations of the world to be integrated, for all nations of the world to be integrated.
In order for individual nations to prosper, we must envision an expanded system of trade and cooperation. The time is right to consider new connections linking not only nations but the entire world. First proposed by the governor of Colorado in 1890, connecting the eastern and western hemispheres at the Bering Strait is not just a recent idea. At the time, they envisioned a vast cosmopolitan railway system that would link the entire world. Since then, the idea of a Bering Strait land passage has gone through many developments. In recent years, the vision of connecting the Bering Strait has been advocated by the Reverend Dr. Sun Myung Moon. He has emphasized the benefit this land connection would have on world peace and has created the Foundation for Peace and Unification dedicated to this project. Current proposals consist of a 53-mile-long seabed tunnel, as well as nearly 4,000 miles of railroad track laid across remote stretches of North America and East Asia. Linking these two continents would open up an entirely new route to transfer goods. It would also provide access to once isolated areas that surround the strait, just as the Transcontinental Railway had done for America's West more than a century ago. But with a distance never before achieved in tunnel construction, this mega project has left many asking, is this proposal really within our reach?
It's often a misconception that it's impossible to build a land connection at the Bering Strait. But actually, from an engineering standpoint, this is a very feasible project.
There are three major challenges engineers face when building an underwater tunnel: the type of bedrock for drilling and support, the depth of the tunnel, and the distance the tunnel spans. The Seikon Tunnel in Japan dealt with depths of over 700 feet. What about the Bering Strait?
The Bering Strait at its deepest point is less than 200 feet, which is relatively shallow, very favorable for building a tunnel.
Of utmost importance is the composition of the seabed. Projects like the English Channel had to deal with soft, chalky material in contrast to the Bering Strait.
Another aspect of this that gives us confidence in the technical feasibility is that most of the seabed under the Bering Strait is granite. This means that when we bore a tunnel, it is largely self-supporting.
What seems to be the greatest challenge facing this undertaking is the 53-mile-long gap between the tip of East Asia and Alaska. The longest underwater tunnel ever completed was the English Channel, which spans nearly 23 miles.
Because there are two islands in the middle of the Bering Strait, the distance is effectively cut in half. This means that construction can proceed from 4 points at once.
Based on existing technology and proven construction models, the tunnel at the Bering Strait can certainly be achieved in our time. Since the tunnel construction is feasible, then one obstacle remains: connecting the tunnel region with the nearest rail links.
Already, Russia is building a railroad that connects the Baikal-Amur main line to Yakutsk. Contingent on the response by the United States and Canada, Russia has already said that it will extend its railroad all the way to the Bering Strait.
Plans are in the works to build a natural gas pipeline from Prudhoe Bay to Canada and on to the Midwestern United States. This presents an opportunity for expanded rail links. As materials for pipeline construction would likely need a supply line, a vast amount of rail infrastructure could already be in place.
When we first built the rail in the United States from east to west, that was the lifeblood. That was what created a strong America. That was what created our national economy, the ability to get from east to west. If we were willing to do it then, why wouldn't we be willing to do it now when the stakes are a lot higher and the benefits a lot
With the
greater?
very initiation of Nawapa in North America, politically and economically, the land connecting the continents of America and Eurasia is placed on the agenda. The connection via the Bering Strait, a project that was proposed in the middle of the 19th century, would lead highways and rail track through a tunnel underneath the icy ocean waters and would include a gas pipeline as well as power transmission and communications lines. Construction of the Bering Strait Tunnel is an active agenda of many of the most important nations in that region.
Now, with a bridge or tunnel across the Bering Strait, suddenly that rail route that goes up to Alaska means something else entirely. Suddenly, if you talk about continuing that rail into what Mr. and Mrs. LaRouche have been calling for as the Eurasian land bridge, you're talking about connecting rail all the way from South Africa up through the continent of Africa, up through Central Asia, through Asia, Russia, across the Bering Strait, down through North America, down through South America. Once we've solved the problem of crossing the Darien Gap, all the way down to the southern tip of Argentina. So suddenly, all these cities that were once the middle of absolute nowhere become the centers of human culture.
I'm going to talk today about the Bering Strait Tunnel project.
One of the international specialists on planning and constructing infrastructure projects of this scale and kind is Dr. Hal Cooper. Dr. Cooper has inspired and performed extensive feasibility studies on the rail and tunnel project for the Bering Strait, the rail connections within Alaska and Canada, as well as in numerous further projects.
Well, the Bering Strait Tunnel really is the physical as well as the political and economic linchpin of the Four Power Agreement between the United States, Russia, China, and India. Of the Four Power Agreement between the United States, Russia, China, and India. And it would certainly re-stimulate many of our moribund manufacturing industries. It would create many new jobs. It would give a purpose to our development, but most importantly, it would give people a sense of hope and optimism that something can change for the better rather than the worse, which is what the global-only policies and philosophies have brought us to, which, as you say, is it's an economic collapse. It's economic cannibalism at its worst. Recreating and creating an entirely new paradigm with the Bering Strait Tunnel and the North American Water and Power Alliance and related infrastructure projects, because these have been basically verboten activities under the globalization, free market, free trade system, which of course is what we have to eliminate. And this provides the vehicle by which that can take place, and of course it will definitely have a psychological effect as well as a physical and an economic effect. And I think the oncoming Four Powers Agreement of the United States, Russia, China, and India really becomes the backbone of all this to occur. Oncoming Four Powers Agreement of the United States, Russia, China, and India really becomes the backbone of all this to occur.
Dr. Sergei Cherkasov is a further international expert for such projects. Cherkasov works at the State Geological Vernadsky Museum in Moscow, which is part of the Russian Academy of Sciences. He is a leading expert on questions of raw materials in the scientific tradition of Vladimir Vernadsky and Dmitry Mendeleev, and is active in several international working groups on surveying undiscovered mineral deposits.
We can recollect history of Trans-Siberian Railway construction. We can look at the experience of Baikal-Amur Railroad, of new project, Urals Polar, Urals Industrial. But I would rather focus on what we should done to make this project really acting project. First of all, we have to really understand
distribution of different resources on the way we are going to build. Without that, it will be like fifth leg for a dog. We have to really understand what will be transported through this railway or infrastructure corridor, either through channel or through bridge. So, first of all, distribution of human resources, of mineral and other resources. Second, first stage actions. I don't want to go into technical complications. Also, there is a lot to say about permafrost, there is a lot to say about mountains on the way. But if we start with healthy thinking, we have a chance to accomplish it healthy. We hear a lot of voices shouting that the resources, mineral resources, are being exhausted. We have to go to the moon, we have to, I don't know, we will die as civilization because of lack of resources. And at the same time, we've explored just a thin film on the surface of the Earth. There is a lot we don't know about the Earth. There is a lot we don't know about the resources. First of all, if we talk about Siberia and about Russian forests, it is a kind of storage room for the whole world. Of course, there are huge resources already known, but at the same time, there are resources that we don't know about yet. And we have many examples when quite interesting mineral deposits or deposits are not being explored, because at the moment it doesn't bring immediate profit. Of course, if we mine something in Africa, the product will be cheaper than if we mine it behind the polar circle. When we talk about resources, it is not just about minerals, about ores. We have quite a complicated distribution of different kinds of resources on the Earth. If we look globally on Eurasia, we have high density population in the south. We have nearly zero population in the north. At the same time, we have some mineral resources, forestry in the north, which is needed by the south. But it is not that easy. We just build railway and we get these resources. The problem is some mineral deposits can be mined in such a way, gold deposits, because the product, enriched product, takes not a lot of space and not a lot of weight, and it can be taken out by plane. But if we talk less expensive metals, they need deep processing. And they need to process these ores, we need really developed infrastructure.
know the weather forecast for tomorrow is at catastrophic levels, and based on that, plus the conditions we've experienced in the last few days, I've accepted the advice of Commissioner Fitzsimmons and declared a state of emergency across New South Wales.
It is an above normal situation that we're experiencing at the moment.
In Queensland, 2 emergency warnings are in place. One for a fire burning west of Yeppoon in central Queensland. This fire is burning near the town of Cobberable, and residents in Adelaide Park should seek shelter now. There are reports of damage to property, and it's believed multiple homes have been destroyed in the Cobberable area. A fire emergency has been declared for 42 local government areas, stretching from Gold Coast to Rockhampton and as far north as Cairns. Now, an emergency warning has been reinstated for a fire burning at Koroiba Ringtail Road, Creek, where residents have been advised to leave immediately. And people at Wanton and Noosa North Shore are advised to stay informed. Meanwhile, Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk has urged residents to remain vigilant and says the threat is far from over.
We're going to get into the fires down in Australia. I mean, it's just, they've been burning for months. And I'm going to show you why all these fires are going on across the globe. And there's a reason. They're always multifaceted reasons. Not to mention, you know, it's part of the New World Order. Anyway, here, we're going to jump right into this. We'll jump right into the forecast here in just a minute. But they're talking, you know, these fires are not normal. What's different about these mega fires? Well, I'll tell you what's different. They're being accelerated by particulates, man-made clouds, and all these fires have something in common. Now, today, California approved a $3.2 billion bond for a high-speed train to nowhere. The FEMA train. Yeah, I'm going to show you guys something that'll blow your mind. Here's Australia, mapping Australia's high-speed rail routes. Now, if you didn't know, they're planning on building a one-world train system. The Inter-Hemispheric Railroad, Bering Strait. I've got the tunnel maps and the projects right here. And when you look at all these, they all line perfectly up with all the fires, even the ones in Russia through BC. See if I can expand this map a little bit. And then even down in Australia, they're wanting to put the high-speed rail in. See, all these other countries are so far behind China as far as high-speed rails that they want to get caught up. I mean, they're 30, 40 years behind China. You know, they have trains that run 600 miles an hour plus. I think we have our fastest trains, you know, maybe 150 miles an hour. Let me see if I can, I'm trying to get this map to get bigger so I can show you the actual full map. That ain't what I wanted. Here, I'll just try to zoom in on it here. So the main routes of the World Land Bridge, existing routes, green, proposed routes. Look down here in Australia, right in all the fire zones. Look in California, right up the coast, right through BC. And then they're going to build the underground railway. Let me, which a lot of us think that this railway has already been started. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the Inner Bering Railroad. Let's click on this. You know, this is like the one world train. They're trying to bring in the one world religion, the one world government. You got to have the one world train. High-speed railways all across the globe, or the plane, whatever you want to call it. And they're going to connect everything. That way, if you don't agree with the New World Order plan, they can just ship you off. You know, even CNN did a video on this high-speed train from China to the U.S. You know, they always have the war machine going, like, we're always in a war, or we're going to start a war, or they're all in this together. It's all a single plan with all the elites. And we're just the peasants, man. We're the rats, the lab rats. So yeah, this is what they're working on, and I'll leave the links in the description. Let me go ahead and close some of this stuff down. I just wanted to cover some of this. You know, instead of improving the land out here in California, they want to put in this railroad to nowhere. I mean, it's really basically to nowhere, to almost to Las Vegas. You know, it's just nuts what's going on. Here's their path. This path actually connects right into the inner Bering path. Here, let me pop this link into the description here so you guys got this. But this is just one aspect of why we're seeing these fires. You know, on top of them wanting to try to portray this climate crisis, but it's actually an engineered, man-made crisis. You can see this going all over China, India. It goes everywhere. They want this thing all connected together. We're just in it for the ride. And then you got the superhighways. Can't forget about them.